morning, dear friends, and welcome aboard this Sankofa flight today, which takes off toward the country of reggae music, Jamaica, on the occasion of the 38th anniversary of the death of a genius, an outstanding musician, a professional level football player, and much more than all that. Deceased while at the peak of his career, at the age of only 36 years old, Robert Nesta Marley, aka Bob Marley, was also an Africanist coupled with a Pan-Africanist. The first true music superstar from a poor country, he was the voice of all oppressed peoples. His social and spiritual dimension has given him the aura of a prophet. As for his international career, it lasted less than 10 but intense years, in which Africa occupied a very special place. Let's go through a few key dates of his relationship with Africa for a well-deserved tribute to Marley the African.
African History Daily by my daddy.
It all started in 1966 when Haile Selassie I, Emperor of Ethiopia, who is considered by the Rastas as the Messiah announced in the Bible, when he visited Jamaica. That year, Bob Marley was not home. He was in the United States, working in the cleaning team of the Dupont Hotel in Wilmington. But his wife was present at the arrival of the monarch, whom she described as being Jesus reincarnated. Upon his return to Jamaica, Bob Marley declared himself as a Rasta and began to really care about the black continent. But it is much later, in 1974, that he expressed for the first time his connection with Africa. "I feel Africa," he said. "I want to go there to write a little of music. Instead of going to New York, why not go to Ghana or Nigeria, play some music and learn new languages?" 2 years later, he recorded the song War, a song that takes excerpt from a speech made by Emperor Haile Selassie in 1963 at the United Nations. Released in the album Rasta Vibration, the title War was very successful, just as another song on that same album, Jah Live, also recorded in honor of Haile Selassie. 1977 saw the release of the album called Exodus. The track of the same name evokes the return of all Africans throughout the world, particularly those related to the Rasta movement to Africa. When in 1978, Bob Marley finally made it to the African soil for the first time, he became fully aware of his African identity. It was precisely in Ethiopia, in Shashemene, a symbolic city granted by Emperor Haile Selassie to the black people of the diaspora and particularly to the Rastafarian movement people. Still in 1978, Bob Marley received the Third World Peace Medal, a distinction awarded by African delegation to the United Nations. The medal was passed around his neck in New York by the Senegalese ambassador on behalf of 500 million of Africans. Proud with this recognition, in 1979 he took part in a demonstration for the independence of Zimbabwe and published a song of the same name, which came out on the legendary album Survival. The message in that song was very clear: Africans, free Zimbabwe, we are going to free Zimbabwe. And on the original cover of that album, there were 48 African flags symbolizing the unity of Africa. This very idea of African unity was even better expressed on the same album through another track, African Unite, which transformed Marley into a true icon on the continent. African Unite is a heartfelt cry of Pan-Africanism. Africa, it said, "You are the cornerstone of my ancestors. Get united for Africans abroad. Get united for Africans in the continent." Another milestone of his commitment against oppression and for the African cause was that concert that Bob Marley gave that same year in Boston for the benefit of the fight against apartheid in South Africa. Then finally came the capital year, 1980, which saw the liberation of Zimbabwe. Marley gave 2 exceptional concerts, including one in communion with 50,000 people in a stadium in Harare. This concert was so close to his heart that he spent $250,000 out of his own pocket to move his band and all the equipment needed for the sound. So one can imagine that the sound was so perfect that when he started the song Zimbabwe, security barriers gave way under the pressure of spectators outside the stadium. Hopefully, this Zimbabwe trip that Marley described as the most emotionally charged of his life has made him forget the other trip made a few months earlier to Gabon, where he thought he would sing for all the Gabonese people. But then he left Libreville very disappointed because he was trapped into a private concert for the country president Omar Bongo and a few of his dignitaries. Quite the opposite of the Marley spirit, who then witnessed himself a reality of African governance that hurts so much the image of the continent. My African cliché of the day is a year, 1981, which saw the death of Bob Marley on May 11th, blown away by cancer. If today in Jamaica, the tornado of dance made in USA makes the legend Marley less alive, Africans still celebrate the one who defended and sung so much for them. For African youth, Bob Marley has absolutely made it to the Hall of Fame of black icons such as Thomas Sankara, Nelson Mandela, or Malcom X. His African successors, such as Alpha Blondy, Lucky Dube, and Tiken Jah Fakoly, continue their way of fighting for peace and denouncing hypocrite government from the north and from the south. So, dear friend, while waiting to board you again on Thursday for new African stories, let us always stand together and united, always looking for the best. Thank you and goodbye.